you for visiting the Africa Rising Cycling Podcast, where we share the big and most interesting cycling stories from across the continent of Africa and from around the world where African cyclists are racing and riding.
We're thrilled to share this podcast with you today. Some of you who followed our podcast know all about Jonathan Rafiki Muhawenimana. He's the son of Rafiki Uwimana, who is one of our original members of Team Rwanda Cycling and who you will be talking to in the next couple of weeks because he's actually working at the Navajo Reservation right now for another nonprofit. So we've got so much exciting stuff coming with this father-son duo. So we'll put a link in our show notes to that recent podcast that we did with Rafiki and Jonathan. And just so you guys know, and remember, Jonathan is the current Rwanda junior national champ in mountain bikes. So we're super excited. He's multidisciplined. He rides gravel, road, mountain. He does it all. And Jonathan is racing in the US this summer. He recently took second in the 53-mile red course at Steamboat Gravel 2 weekends ago. And next up for Jonathan is Ned Gravel in Nederland, Colorado on July 12th. We're here today to talk about July 25th, which is his first road event, the Mount Blue Sky Hill Climb, formerly the Bob Cook Memorial Hill Climb. So we're excited to talk to Ryan Petrie from Mount Blue Sky. So Ryan, just give us a little background, your role with Mount Blue Sky, and for people who've never heard of the event, what is it and why is it so legendary?
Yeah, hey everybody. So my name is Ryan. I work, the event, the Mount Blue Sky Hill Climb, is owned under the umbrella of Shift Events. So we put on 7 different events throughout the year. Mountain bike events, road bike events. One of our most famous is the Triple Bypass. So we have our portfolio scans from, some of the biggest, most iconic races to like a little event that we have called the Betty Bike Bash, which is all about welcoming women into the sport of mountain biking. So my role with Shift Events and the Blue Sky Hill Climb is kind of just driving content and kind of getting more creative and telling better stories through our content and with our partners. So, our whole goal is to support our partners and to support our communities. We're a nonprofit and we just want to get more people on bikes. We know the power of bikes and, everyone shares that, but I figure if we can tell better stories and share the ups and downs that come when you enter this incredible sport and through these events, then that's a great thing. So whether it's on social media or with things like podcasts or newsletters, I trying to just make that more engaging and more open up the door for more people to get curious about jumping on a bike or maybe reignite something that they maybe fell out of.
I think an event like the Mount Blue Sky Hill Climb, it was formerly known as the Bob Cook Memorial Ride, and Bob Cook was a former racer back in the day. Is there any history you can share regarding Bob Cook?
So I know Bob Cook, this race was established in 1962. It was called the Mount Evans Hill Climb. So Mount Evans is the former name of this mountain. They've since changed it. And by the way, might as well get this out there. Mount Evans, or now Mount Blue Sky, is a 14er. So in Colorado, it's a 14,000 foot peak, and it's one of only 2 that has a paved road to the top. So the other one being Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs, not too far away. So in 1962, the Mount Evans Hill Climb was started. And in that time, Bob Cook was a young racer, and I believe he won it 5 times. So in 1981, he had passed away from cancer when he was 23 years old. So the race was renamed after Bob Cook. And so, I know Bob Cook was also, he's a US Olympian and a record holder in a few different areas, but him winning this iconic race 5 times is why the race at one point was called the Bob Cook Memorial Hill Climb, I believe.
Yeah, and Mount Evans, like you said, 14,000 feet and a paved road to the top. And it's funny you bring up Pikes Peak because he's also going to do Pikes Peak in August. So we're going to make sure
Awesome.
Jonathan hits all the major 14ers on his bike.
Yeah, it's pretty special to get up there. So, I mean, for anybody listening, this road, the race itself is only about 27 miles, which seems pretty short. But it's straight uphill. You start in Idaho Springs, which is a town just off of I-70, which is like kind of a major highway to the mountains in Colorado. And it's all uphill, 6,700 feet from Idaho Springs, starting a little over 7,000 feet to the top of a 14,000 foot mountain. And that's what makes it so special. So yeah, it's 27 miles, but it takes several hours to do. Some people like 5, 6+ hours. And the altitude is real. I mean, there's a difference even between, Denver or like Boulder areas are 5,000 feet. That's 1 mile high. Somewhere like a Leadville, Colorado, that's 10,000 feet. That's 2 miles high. And this is 14,000 feet. This is like getting closer to 3 miles high. And at this elevation, you only have about 60% of the oxygen that you would have at sea level. So your whole body just goes into a totally different, like the energy systems and the way you respond is unpredictable. And not just that, but also the weather at those altitudes, the temperatures, things can just get out of hand quickly. But it makes it very exciting. It makes it one of those experiences that people do put on their bucket list, because once you're above tree line for those last 3,000 feet on this, you're on top of the world. And it's just a surreal experience to be riding your bike at those elevations, with that scenery.
As a Brit, it's not a race I'm familiar with, but I was going to ask you kind of what is the uniqueness of it, but I think you've just summed it up. But you mentioned the heights are just scary numbers. Is it what you're saying? Is it the elevation, the fact it is just straight up, the incline, and the weather? I mean, that's a perfect storm of 3 serious issues.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the race starts out and everyone's doing fine. It's not that steep. It's kind of just a gentle grade, but as you get higher and higher, the road pitches up, you have less oxygen, the weather can kick in. So it really escalates quickly and exponentially. And the steepest grades of the road are on the top. And that's also just where your body's kind of in like an unknown mode. So it's interesting. I've done the ride a few different times. And another note about like these 14ers. So generally people just do them hiking because most of these summits aren't accessible by road. And when you're hiking them, even some people have to turn around early or because they're not acclimated. So when people want to do these 14ers here in Colorado, they come out to Boulder or Denver area for a little while, acclimate slowly. You may hear stories, of when people are doing like something like a Mount Everest, right? That's a very extreme version. But yeah, if you're not acclimated, it's very possible that your body really just doesn't respond well, and you could get sick from altitude sickness, and you can't get to the top of these mountains. So to be doing it in a bike race is it's a pretty difficult task.
So considering all of those challenges, what do you think gets people, they keep coming back? Like you said, this race has been around a really long time. It was off for 1 year for repaving of the road, but what keeps people coming back?
I think with all of these challenges in cycling and all these adventure challenges and endurance challenges, I think there's something primal inside of all of us that we need to keep touch with. Even though we're evolving as humans, and I think but we all still have that part of us that wants to see what we're capable of, to see what's around the bend, to chase something that's a little bit scary and hard. And in life, sometimes, things can get comfortable. And I think we all have that need to keep pushing and keep stressing our bodies in different ways. But there's also, so yeah, it's an epic bucket list type of thing to stand on top of that mountain with your bicycle, something so few people can ever say they can do.
Well, the big news, obviously internationally for the race, is you have Jonathan setting up as the current, as Kim said, Rwandan national junior mountain bike champion, but also pretty handy on the road. The good thing is where he lives, he's used to the altitude and those kind of elevations. So I think he'll be in good shape for this. But what does it mean for you guys as the organizers to have, like, one of the young rising stars of Africa on the start list?
Yeah, we are always so excited when people travel for this type of event, because it's a bucket list experience. And what we do at Shift is, it's not, races necessarily, but it's experiences, and we try to put on the best experience we can. And the fact that Jonathan wanted to come over and try this experience, it's really special to us, because there's hundreds of different things he could do. And the fact that he wants to do this, it's not just exciting for us, and it's a huge compliment, but to have like a young racer from who comes from overseas. We're very excited to see what he thinks about the event, but also to see how he stacks up. I mean, Colorado has a lot of really fast young riders. And so for him to have a chance to push himself against some of these guys and girls, I know he was just at Steamboat Gravel and he did really well. And I'm curious how he does at this Ned gravel race. But anytime you dive into a new world and you get to challenge yourself against new people, I think you grow as a rider and a racer. And at his phase of his, cycling career, or what you want to call it, experience is everything. And that's what's going to help him to grow and be the most successful in this sport and do whatever he really wants to do with it.
So Rwanda is known as the land of 1,000 hills. So Rwandans are climbers. So we're hoping for some good results from Jonathan, and he is used to altitude. He lives at 6,700 feet. We're at 6,700 feet here at the ranch. So he hasn't had to do much acclimating. He's already acclimated, which is a huge plus. But we were just talking as you were talking, Ryan, and Jonathan has a question for you.
So I was wondering, the Mount Blue Sky, it's like 27 miles, so about like 45 kilometers. I was wondering, during the race, does it get to a point where nobody's racing and it's just a man for themselves and just trying to get up the hill, the climb?
Yeah, so what you could expect, the lower, just like with any race that has bigger climbs in it, whether you're watching the Tour de France, or the steeper the gradients, the less the drafting becomes an important thing. So on the lower level, not only is it earlier in the race, so there'll be packs and you'll want to stay in a group to benefit from the drafting, because you'll still be going, over probably 15, 16 miles per hour on a lot of that. But as it pitches up, what usually happens is the groups, splinter apart. And that's your time to really put time into the riders behind you. And a lot of times guys will stay in like smaller groups, like 2, 3, maybe 4 people. But by the end, those last few switchbacks, you're just going as hard as you can, and you're not really seeing straight. And you might be all alone, but that's going to be an okay thing. It definitely is a race all the way to the finish, but imagine one of those super steep high mountaintop finishes that you watch in these road races on the TV, kind of like that, but maybe even more dramatic because of the altitude kind of messing with people's bodies too.
I realized I looked at the race course and the climb, and I was like, one of my goals for this race is to try to get under 2 hours. And I realized to do that, you need an average speed above like 25 k's an hour. And to do that, you need to push the bottom slopes maybe and try to get your average speed up before you start the steeper gradients.
Yeah, I mean, under 2 hours would be an incredible time for this. I don't even know what the record is. Do any of you know? I
We'll have to
know.
find out.
No,
Yeah, a couple years ago, it
no,
was
no, I'm just
above
on
2
Poly
hours.
Market putting $1,000 on him.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'd say you just conserve and ride in the group on the lower slopes because that's how you're going to move the fastest and save as much energy and just punch it. But don't go too early because you're going to need to save something for that last 1,000 feet or so. It's pretty tough. And if your heart rate is already maxed out and your legs are starting to feel tired and you still have, even 2-3 miles to go, you could lose a lot of time in those last few switchbacks.
So, Jonathan, you're representing Rwanda and the whole new generation of African cyclists. We're actually, truth be told, he's got the tour on his phone over here underneath the desk. So, as we're doing this interview, he's watching the tour because, of course, we're watching Biniam Gourmet. He just got the intermediate sprint points, so we're super jazzed about that. But what do you think it would mean for you as a Rwandan to do well in this race?
It will be a new experience. Like, I don't really know what to expect, but I think the best I can do is try to train and try to get my body used to climbing at higher altitudes. That's I think the best thing I can do.
Mhm.
Also, when like the cycling community is very like welcoming, so if I want to represent my country, like be social with people and try to make connections also during my time there. So that's my main priority is just try to like because connections in cycling usually last. Just try to get as many connections as I can, like during these big events where different people from around come to and attend to. So that's my main goal.
Which, just so you guys know, last year he did the Omnium series, was it? And so it was the series of races throughout the week in Boulder and Denver. And he had his own fan club. They had like the whole group of people on corners with signs, "Go Jonathan, go Rwanda." So when he says he develops community, like he's got quite the following, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of that at Ned Gravel. And for any of you in the area, obviously you can't go up Mount Evans or Blue Sky as the race is going on, but at the beginning, cheering riders on, cheering them back home as they make the descent. That's all. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have people come out and support Jonathan, learn a little bit about Rwanda and the work that we do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Jonathan, I just had a quick question. When you have these influential riders that are from Africa, what do you think makes them influential to you? And then how do you kind of learn from these riders? Because ultimately your goal is to inspire more people. What do you think makes somebody influential to get more people from Africa on bikes?
As you go up, like my dad has a racing academy. That's the one I raced for during when the country and it's like he retired as a cyclist, but he's still into cycling, helping. So like always, I'm always willing, even though I haven't been in cycling for a long time, I'm always willing to give like advice for like the new guys who come to the team or the people who just come into cycling. And the best thing is like, let's say you go out to the Europe or here the US, like don't be afraid to, share your culture and your beliefs. Like try to keep your culture. Like don't try to hide who you really are.
Mhm.
Just express yourself and try to, tell people and also be willing to be like social and be willing to listen to what other people can offer because for me like I know I still have a long way to go in my cycling career. Like this is just the very start. So I try to be humble and try to listen to what people have to give and try to reflect on it.
I think you do that really well, and you're a student of the sport.
What we saw, if I think back to 2016, when MTN Quebec Dimension Data was racing, Kim was there in Rwanda with Team Rwanda, and they watched every single stage of the tour. I think, Kim, you had an old laptop on, right? And they watched every stage start to finish. And seeing the black riders back then of like Mahawi Kudus, Daniel Tekla-Hymanot, guys like that, that really, I saw the inspiration of those riders for the young Rwandans at the time.
What's interesting, when Jonathan was just talking, I was thinking about stage 2.
Yeah.
At the tour, when Isaac de Toro took the win, and that that was a huge win for, people who aren't European, and whether it's people from Mexico or South America winning, or riders like Biniam Girmay winning at the tour, that I think helps advance it for all of us. Representation matters. And when we see kids like Jonathan out there, he's very humble. He said his cycling career is short. He's actually been riding a bike and was raised by a cycling team since the age of 4. So he has a little time in the saddle. And yeah, so I think that's why we're excited to come to Colorado. I just want to thank you guys. Thanks, Ryan, Jonathan, for joining us today. Please follow everything that happens on our social platforms for all the information about Jonathan, his upcoming races, of course, Mount Blue Sky, and his race at Ned Gravel this weekend.
Yeah,
This weekend.
Absolutely. Good luck, Jonathan, in Colorado, these big races. We'll obviously share his results in due course. And we'll put some links in the show notes on the podcast for some of the things we've discussed. So thanks everybody for joining, and we look forward to you to joining the next podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Africa Rising Cycling Podcast. If you like what you have heard, please do share our podcast with your friends and on social media. Leave us a review or even make a donation to Africa Rising Cycling. All of this will help us to continue to bring you fascinating stories about African cycling.